What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. What we have right behind me is this bone stock RSX Type-S that we recently transformed, did a bunch in paint and bodywork, but under the hood, it doesn't make that much power at all. So the goal for this car is a 10-second street car, but before we could get installing some of these beautiful parts right here on the ground in front of us, we're gonna take it out on the street, use a dragy to get a quarter-mile time so we have a nice baseline. So let's go do some pulls, let's get to work. Welcome back to the channel. He's back. Hey, again. So we are in the RSX Type-S. This thing is bone stock other than an intake and a performance like intake air temp like chip thing that went on there. Made 193 horsepower on our dyno, and now we have the dragy hooked up, and we're gonna do some baseline pulls before we actually put this thing, well, before we turbo it. What do you think it's gonna run? Quarter mile on the street. 16. You think 16? I think it's 15. It's gonna be a mid 15. I think it's gonna be like, I think this might be our quarter mile right here. I'm curious to see. All right, we're starting to record. You ready? Quarter mile.
Yeah? Should have left my high number.
We just did a 17.6 quarter mile on the street. We had a 2.68 60 foot. That's pretty bad. But that's a baseline. That's non-turboed, front wheel drive. And the cool thing about the dragy is that this, I mean, I'm pretty sure about right here is where it kind of ended. I think I wanted to do like the goals for this car, I wanted to do a 10-second quarter mile on the street. 10-second street car. You know how we do that?
Alright.
First turbo, then traction.
Yeah.
Have you ever driven an RSX?
Yeah.
Have you ever driven a stock one?
Not a stock one, no.
Uh-oh. You want to do a dragy hit?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Alright, let's do it. Garrett's gonna love the clutch. Nice.
Yeah, that's got some sound effects on that clutch pedal. Oh, missed it.
Burnout? What are you talking about? Let me see a burnout then.
10-second on the street. This thing is gonna be
a long way to go. But...
Oh, we're going though, right? You want to try it again?
I don't want to embarrass myself too much.
Oh, hey.
How about that smell, huh?
Hey.
All right. Little clutch, little brake.
We got some work ahead of us.
Yeah. 10 second. 10 second street car. Coming soon. Garrett is pressure washing the engine bay, trying to get it to cool down a little bit. Mick, the landlord's like, oh man, I think that my Scion could almost beat that. So we're gonna hop in the Scion real quick and we're gonna see what this unit could do.
You could do a 17
in the quarter-mile.
Maybe
I like that head unit. That looks nice. I've never seen the dash of one of these. That's actually kind of cool. And the cube, the toaster. All right, ready. What do you think? How you doing today, Meg?
Doing all right. It's a slow quarter-mile.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
I need much off.
Quarter-mile, 18.79.
18.7. Well, let me go get my slicks on.
Yeah, we'll put the slicks on it.
Slicks on, then we'll
it didn't even
do.
spin though. that's the problem. Well, now we know who's daily
who's faster.
Is faster. The RSX. Buddy, look at that paint.
God, that looks so good.
It's sick. If you guys haven't seen the paint video on this thing, we'll put it in the little card so you can go watch it after this thing. Bone stock K20 A2, 168,000 miles, and we have some beautiful parts to install on this thing. First thing when you have an RSX, the turbo. Why wouldn't you turbo it? You know, supercharger expensive, turbo a little bit cheaper, maybe a little bit more complicated. We have this Garrett GTX 3582R Gen 2 with a V-band exhaust housing. So this turbo was actually on the Lambo Killer for a while. And so I took it off when we put the G42. So this is a nice little piece of history. We're gonna use some things that we have laying around the shop, extra pieces. We also have a Garrett GVW 45 wastegate. In order to get those on the car, you gotta have a manifold. So right here is an Artec turbo manifold. So instead of using a tubular manifold, which they're prone to cracking, and then heat management, they don't have good wastegate priority, Artec actually designed this pretty cool little piece. It seems like it snugs up and it gives you a little bit more room. Wastegate priority is good. And it also has a V-band flange on here. And he already has some marks on here just in case you actually want to cut it off and weld on like a 70mm V-band, which would be like a G42 turbo or a bigger turbo. Cool little piece right there. I'm excited to get this on there and see how it fits. I've seen some pictures and I think this is gonna help us out quite a bit. We also have another Garrett, which I'm really excited to bring in on this project.
Hey, back again.
Hey, he's back in. So we just did some draggy runs on the thing and Garrett did a pull. What do you think?
I'm not a drag racer. Shifting this thing didn't do me any favors either, so pretty bad times.
The clutch isn't that good, but Garrett has actually fabricated and done some turbo stuff on a lot of local RSXs. He's kind of guy. What do you think of that manifold? Do you think it's gonna help?
Oh, that's gonna be pretty nice, yeah. Usually the tubular ones are really big and bulky, and it gets really difficult to route exhaust and stuff like that. So this will definitely make a lot of work a lot easier.
So actually right here we have a Clutch Masters twin disc, which I'm excited to put on. We have a coil radiator. We have Deechworks lines, fuel pump, and fuel injectors. A common thing with a car like this, it's pretty much everybody uses a K-Pro. Uses a factory Honda ECU, it just plugs right in. The bad thing is like stock ECUs are kind of expensive. You gotta send them out, have them soldered, programmed, or you gotta know how to do that, which I don't do that. And by the time you get a K-Pro, it's almost the price of a full standalone, which would be an ECU Master EMU Black, as well as a plug-and-play adapter. So literally, we will take this, which this is a plug-and-play off a different car, but we will plug this into the stock harness. This will go into the ECU Master, and we'll have full standalone control. And the cool thing is EMU Black is exactly what I have on this car. I'm super familiar with them. In that car, we actually made 600 and some horsepower on a bone stock K20 A2 with that turbo. If that gives you any ideas of what's to come for this thing, we should be pretty close to that, hopefully by the end of this video.
So a lot of times with RSX, you have issues with battery and the charge pipes. And I've done at least 2 or 3 where I use factory battery, factory location, but it does get it challenging to run charge pipes without interfering with the shift linkage. A lot of times they'll just bang on the shifters and you can't get into some of your gears. So what we've gone ahead and done to make it even easier on us, we're gonna go with a much smaller battery here. So this is gonna require doing maybe a little bit of a modification to the battery tray, doing a simple custom one, but the battery here, if you can kind of see the footprint of the original battery, really impedes with charging, running charge pipes. It can be done, it's not too bad, but this definitely makes it a lot easier and a lot cleaner. So that's pretty much gonna be our jumping off point. We're gonna start with making sure that everything we need in here is gonna be clear of hot parts and stuff like that. So battery's gonna start. We're gonna jump onto the engine harness, take care of that, and miscellaneous things like that, just to make it clean and safe and free from burning things that don't need to be burned.
One of the most important things about this car to me is keeping AC and power steering and all the functionality that makes a car like this good, because obviously that car, it escalated. And one of my favorite things about that is taking people out, giving them rides, giving them reactions, but then it's so high strung, it's so crazy, sometimes it breaks itself. I want this to be a very, very fast car on the street, but also have AC, power steering, cruise control, a stereo system with a subwoofer, have windows and stuff that go up and down, don't have a bunch of shakes and rattles and creaks. That way when I give people rides in this thing, or I'm daily driving it, going to the grocery store, turn on the AC, turn on the heat, turn on the sound system, just start bumping and have a good time. The other thing too, this build is brought to you by MotionAutoPerformance.com, because pretty much all of these parts other than the battery, MotionAutoPerformance.com. So we got Garrett turbos, Garrett wastegates, Deechworks lines, fittings. I'm actually a dealer for Artec turbo manifolds. I don't have them on the website right now, but if you're interested in them, shoot me a message. Coil radiators, ECU mastered. So if you guys are tired of dealing with like a Honda, or you can't find one, or you don't want to trust a $1,200 or $700 one on Facebook Marketplace, hit me up, get you into a nice EMU black. And these things are freaking awesome. I'm excited to just like plug one in, because on that car we had to wire it, like pin it and do all the other stuff, because they didn't have the plug and play yet. But guess what should we do? Should we start pulling the exhaust manifold? And I'd say exhaust manifold, intake manifold, engine harness out of the way.
Are we doing intake manifold?
So I have a ported RBC manifold from my last setup on that car. You want to kind of keep this thing toned down to a certain extent. I like how it's kind of flat by the radiator, and it keeps the engine kind of square. When you do the RBC, it kind of brings the intake around here. The throttle body's a little bit bigger, the adapter's a little bit bigger. With this, we could keep it like the cruise control, you know, like we could do all the stuff. I don't know if the cruise control is gonna work with the ECU master, but we're gonna figure that out. Let's get into it. Ran into one problem. This manifold has, I've seen a lot of pictures of it in EKs and EGs and K-swapped, but not necessarily in an RSX Type-S. We have a little bit of an issue right here. There's this factory strut brace. As you can see, it gets close to it. So we have this Garrett wastegate, and this obviously won't fit. So what Garrett has said in some of the previous RSXs that you've worked on is pretty much everybody gets rid of that, right?
It'd be really nice to keep, but all things being what they are, some compromises are, gonna be inevitable. Next is we're gonna go ahead and take off the wipers, take off the cowl, and we'll see what we're really dealing with on the cowling in there. If it seems like we can cut those brackets off, manipulate it just a little bit and not mess with anything under the cowl, we might do that just so we can save that manufactured location. Otherwise, we're on to other problem solving.
Other measures. So it is the next day, and things have escalated a little bit. We started doing a little parts gathering around the shop. We're like, what do we have? What do we not have? What do we need to order? We ran into the issue with the wastegate, so we ordered like a fancy little 90 that's like the perfect inside diameter. Then we just kind of started looking at stuff, and we're like, well, technically, clutch in this transmission is pretty bad, so we might as well pull the transmission. And then I'm like, every K-series that I've turboed with stock rods in it has thrown them. So I decided the wastegate pipe is a couple of days out, and I said, you know what, why don't we just overnight some pistons and rods from MotionAutoPerformance.com. So that's exactly what we did, and we already have the clutch, and we need to pull stuff out for the subframe anyhow to get all that stuff cleaned up. While we're waiting on parts, continue. Obviously we need to clean up the engine bay, so we're pulling the engine, and it's almost out.
Yeah.
So the starter motor is out of this this engine. So the engine is also out of the car. But the starter motor that is also attached to the engine is now below the RSX. So we uninstalled the engine as well as the motor.
See exactly where that was pinched.
Yeah.
Look at that. Is that new wire?
Don't think so.
That's good.
So we cracked the thing open, and could be worse. We did find that the engine harness was pinched between the motor and the bell housing and transmission there. So fortunately, I think we got a little bit lucky, and it only pinched some plastic and no wires. Flywheel, clutch off, engine stand.
What do you think was wrong with that clutch? Because it was bad.
Bearing. I think release bearing.
Really?
Yeah.
They didn't replace it.
Well, it's hardly moving.
Oh.
Like and it's stiff.
So that's what somebody literally said that in the comments. They're like, when I did that, it's like they didn't put lube on it.
Yeah.
So
it's
we could
dry.
China clutch. I think that's like Clutch Max, $89 clutch.
Oh.
Either that or it's a really good expensive one, and that was just the problem.
Yeah. I've never seen the covers in white in anything other but that whatever Chinesium one.
Wow.
Oh, look
that
at
got
the
hot.
bearing.
Ooh.
It's sideways in there. I mean, I did say previous owner, look at the clutch, look at the pads.
Yeah, they welded to the.
No, but look,
Oh.
the pads aren't big enough.
That really isn't too big of a deal. You just wouldn't want overhang.
But yeah, I mean, it was pretty much down to the metal, so
Yeah.
we were done. This wouldn't have lasted very long at all. We would have probably got 2 or 3 pulls turboed, and this thing would have been, we would have probably broke the transmission trying to grind the gears because it wasn't shifting. Look at that pilot bearing. It's like smushed sideways in there. And if you look at the bearing right here, this thing's like polished. Like, because it was just riding in there, because probably did it in the car, slamming stuff, bolted it together and said, F it. And this is what we got. But I'm glad that we pulled it out, and we have a really nice clutch to go back in here, so we shouldn't have any of these issues. All right, guys, it is the next day. Garrett is getting ready to pressure wash this bone stock K20A2.
For all the powers.
All of the power. But we got a special delivery today from MotionAutoPerformance.com. Overnight parts, Manly rods, Wiseco pistons, and a head gasket. I also have some head studs. So we're trying to do this thing on not necessarily a budget, but we're buying certain things and like not going absolutely insane and crazy with this thing. Because even though this car is gonna make some decent power, probably like 600, it's not like we're trying to go for 1,000. So I think at this power level, pistons and rods should be good. So Garrett's gonna go ahead and basically just start giving this thing the full clean. Then when she's all done, tear it apart and get it running. Do you think you could have it right now? It's about noon, 6 hours. Do you think you could have this thing apart and back together?
Yeah, most likely. We don't have to go too deep into it. We're gonna reuse bearings as long as everything comes out looking clean. No reason to change those out. So yeah, I mean, a little bit of time and gap in the rings. It's gonna probably take longer to clean everything than it will be to put it together and have it done.
What I need to do is we need to put like a buzzer on you. You get like 10 minutes per thing. They go, okay, start cleaning. All right, move on.
If it's not clean, you gotta let it go.
Yep, just let it go.
Let the drama accumulate.
I'm gonna start working on the Mustang on the other side of the shop because we don't need 2 people to build a motor. I gotta get to work.
No way.
Got it.
Yes.
We got it.
If you were here by yourself, like, we wouldn't have a shop tomorrow.
No, it just burned to the ground.
Yeah, like
Sheer
honestly, if I was here by
frustration.
myself trying to do this, like that, it's just silly. Like the innovation of like, oh, let's try this. I'll hold this. You add that. No, let's put this on it, and like you just go back and forth. Like the collaboration in a situation like this
It keeps the temperature down too, you know. It's like, all right, we'll figure it out.
like, well, you're pissed off. Well, I'm not that mad. Okay. Okay, now I'm mad. You're like, hey, no, actually, you settle down. Hold on, let's do this.
I like it, yeah. Exactly.
That's crazy. I mean, I was on it, and now we're good. Hey, now we can continue. All right, so we have all the rotating assembly back together, and it went really smooth, so that was nice. Now we get to do the fun part, do the big pieces that are really obvious, like head gasket, head, cams, and it all goes back together. And hopefully by tonight, give it another hour, maybe 2, and we'll have a done motor. Press on with that. Head gasket next. So the engine is almost done. Now it means that it's time to clean up the transmission, to put it all back together. We decided that this car is going all-wheel drive. You guys know that, we've talked about it. Maybe we haven't talked about it, but maybe you could assume. So right here we have a 5-speed manual transmission. It's actually out of a Honda Element, a subframe out of a Honda Element as well, because it actually has the provisions for the transfer case, and it has a different rear mount setup as well. That mounts on the back of the transmission right next to the transfer case. Transfer case goes right here, engine mount goes here. The reason that we're doing this is obviously we're gonna do this thing front wheel drive before, but we're planning on making a downpipe. There's no reason in making a downpipe and exhaust for a front wheel drive car and then having to pull the transmission out, swap it all when we have it here, the engine's out, we have a 5-speed transmission here. We're just gonna put it all in right now, run it front wheel drive, do the exhaust fabrication, and then when we do the rear diff mount and drive shaft, fuel cell, whatever we're deciding with the fuel, which is gonna take us a little bit longer, which is why we're not doing all-wheel drive at first. We just wanna do front wheel drive, have a little bit of fun. So 5-speed, all-wheel drive tranny, ran in front wheel drive. It doesn't hurt them. It's literally just an output off of the final drive, so doesn't mess with them. So getting this thing all cleaned up and get it pressure washed, and we'll stick it in there with the fresh engine. See how many gears we could do a front wheel drive burnout in. Think I could shift into 5th and do a 5th gear burning?
Coming around to the ways of the Honda, so it's very possible.
Oh, you'll see.
Well, that is pretty much it. Still upside down because we just threw the oil pan back on.
And lastly, we need our turbo oil drain return. Trevor and I both kind of independently have come to the same conclusion that the front side, basically underneath the intake manifold, is the best place for a turbo oil return on at least the RSX, if not some other K20 front wheel drive swaps, just because it's the higher side of the pan, whatnot. So basically what we've done is just picked up a threaded pipe to -10 or GISC fitting, gone ahead and drilled and tapped the block. So pretty straightforward there. We're gonna go ahead and just thread into the block. I'm not a huge fan of welding Honda aluminum. It's kind of a dirty aluminum, and I like the aluminum pan over the steel, so we're gonna go this route for now, but it could change up in the future if we need to, but this is the best way that we can get rolling on the project right now with things that we just had on hand, I guess you could say. So we'll get that threaded in there, flip the motor over, and I think we can stick flywheel, clutch, stab the transmission. We're back in the car in what, 2 hours?
An hour.
Hour?
1 hour.
You heard
running
it.
and driving.
An hour from this moment. Keep watching. It's gonna be a whole hour of uncut.
1 hour of footage.
Hey guys, Charles the video editor here, and yeah, I'm not doing that.
You guys better watch the whole video. You guys better like the video too. Looking at the engine bay, and this thing is a little bit greasy, so we said let's pull it outside and pressure wash it, but we didn't want to put the subframe in it, so we said, you know what?
What's that?
That, my friend, is a vehicle cart pinch weld dolly from Benpack. Shout out Benpack.
That thing is sick.
Look at that.
So you don't even have the entire front end in here, and you're able to roll this car.
Roll it around. We could roll it in the paint booth. We could roll it out of the paint booth. We could pull subframes. Obviously, what we're doing here is we just, you know, leave the back with like it's rolling. Roll it outside, pressure wash the engine bay, roll it back in here, good to go. It's nice because you can literally pull a subframe out of a car and still have full access to your shop. And you don't have to use like jacks, and I think rolls really nice too. This is like having an extra guy at your shop or two.
Yeah.
Or in my case, 3.
Dude, stop. Jesus Christ, it slid on the
Settle, don't be yelling at me, jeez.
It slid.
Settle down.
Sometimes, like, you just have
Settle
this careless.
down, Charles.
You have this careless.
What, you would have thought there was a freaking
attitude.
something falling from the sky the way
It
that
literally
you...
was about to. Do you want to just let the car fall on the ground?
There's nothing that you yelling at me in that moment is gonna
Hey,
do.
stop! Instead of you continuing on, potentially ruining this car.
The other day, okay, we were pulling off of the dyno, and Charles literally he's like, stop, and I was like, oh, I like, stop, put it in gear.
Stop.
And then he's like, why are you getting out of the car? I was like, you told me to stop.
No,
I was like,
you stalled
buddy,
the
like,
car.
No,
The actual story goes, you were pulling up the dyno and I said, hey, stop so I can get another clip. I didn't say stop and get another clip. I said, stop, just like that. I said, stop, and you stalled the car. And I said, why the f did you turn it off? You said, oh, I thought something was wrong.
This guy's voice, the guy behind the camera, right there, his voice has many different intentions, and he can make it mean, like he'll convince you you're gonna die if you have a scratch on your arm. Like he is that guy. He's really convincing, and so he, in that moment, he's like, stop. I was like, oh, you know, like slammed on the brakes. Obviously it died, and then I was just like, well, what's the matter? He's like, I want to go around and get another clip. I was like, that's what you did.
The video was all that better for it.
Yeah.
You know what? I also potentially saved this car from being totaled. So you're welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Charles.
Hey, you're welcome, pal.
What would we do without you? Hell yeah. Hell, that motherfucker's tucking. Oh, hell yeah. It's tucking. You know, you gotta tuck on a 250 to make it go down the road.
Wow.
We got a freaking
tarantula.
Aren't you?
Are you gonna pick it up?
You can, right? Where'd you come from, buddy? He's just chill. I should bring that home to the girls. They would love that. Honestly, I've never once seen a tarantula migrating. I've heard about it, but I've not. And that, what a homie.
Migrating right now. Can I see it?
Yeah, check that unit out.
ever had issue with tightening your flywheel bolts and the motor is spinning, I'm gonna give you a quick tip on how to keep that from happening without any special tools necessary. What you're gonna need is one of your transmission mounting bolts, a wrench that fits nicely over that, and one of your cover bolts. So we'll get this threaded in nice and easily. All right, now that both of those are threaded in, load on the motor, and that's not going anywhere. You can run through your torque sequence without having any additional help.
Look at that.
Success.
New pilot bearing is installed.
Yeah.
And now we got this clutch. What do you think of that clutch?
I love this. I wish I could run one of these on the street.
On a SOP, right?
On a sub, yeah.
That's right. So
Someday.
organic and then race. Organic race.
Yep, so ceramic on the inner disc there. That's where a lot of the bite's gonna come from, a lot of that holding power. And then the organic kind of helps wear and tear on flywheel, stuff like that. So down the road, you gotta change out the clutch kit, do new stuff. You can swap it out without a lot of damage on the flywheel. So.
Yeah. So this thing should hopefully hold a lot of power, but also maybe be smooth. Nice to drive. But also when you pull up to the stoplight, you can have a little ching-a-ling, you know, which means that you better watch out.
I think that's actually the point of this right here. So they have a spring-loaded floating plate in here, and that's intended to kind of help keep some of that chatter down.
And how are people gonna know not to mess with the RSX if it doesn't
They'll
have
know after the fact, and that's the important thing.
That is true. That, honestly, that is. Because if you pull up to a stoplight and you hear it chinging, you know, it's like chinging, and you can hear the clutch disc, you're like, oh, either something's broken or that thing's fast. Alright, so we ran into our first problem with the all-wheel drive system. This is an 02 or an 05 Honda CR-V subframe. This is the transmission out of the same CR-V, Honda Element, whatever. And the reason you have to do that is to fit this transfer case, which it has a completely different style engine mount. So in the back, this is actually a plastic engine mount with metal inserts. They look like aluminum or steel inserts. They're probably aluminum. Steel and aluminum, when they get wet, they do things together. Right now, we're having an interference issue with the chassis. So this engine mount is actually touching right there. And it's almost at the point where we would have to either beat that up with a hammer and take out a serious chunk of metal to get this mount to fit in there properly, which these are plastic and they do break, or we take it out right now and come up with another solution, a better solution once it's in the car. The problem that we have right now is it's actually these nuts, like I said, aluminum in plastic. It's just spinning. So they're just spinning in there. So on top of us having to take it out, we have to deal with that for a second. So that's kind of our dilemma right now. So we're gonna take this off and then essentially just get it in the car with 3 mounts, move on, and we'll figure out the solution once everything is up in there, and we might even have to make like a custom mount. We're gonna figure it out. Engine is in this thing. It's almost ready to start up. We need to plug in the ECU. We got to run some wires in the front, hook up the fuel lines, but we also have a lot of other parts showing up for this thing as well. Garrett is working on a solution for the rear engine mount, and at this point, this video has gone on quite a while, and Charles has edited this thing for almost 12 hours. So if you guys like the quality of the video, if you agree that Motion Auto is on like a nice trend, we're not rambling, we're not wasting your time with the videos, we're just trying to be good YouTubers. It's taken us a while to get here.
man, it sucks to put in all this effort and get 20,000 views, and it's hard to pay the bills. So if you guys wouldn't mind liking this video, leaving a comment on what you think, and possibly sharing it with your friends, because that is really the way that we're trying to grow this thing. I mean, obviously, there's a bunch of amazing creators on this platform, and we're trying to be one of them. So if you guys like the videos, be sure to watch them, and we're gonna see you in the next one.